Hello and welcome to the Gym Lords Podcast. My name is Cale Owen, the general manager here at Gym Launch, and I'm excited to introduce you to a 4-part series that Alex Hormozi, our CEO here at Gym Launch, did with Dr. John Berardi, the founder of Precision Nutrition. And they dive into a ton of different topics that I know you're going to find extremely interesting. But before we hop in, as always, go ahead and hit a like button if you find some value in this. And then also, if you want to learn more and get more content very similar to this, go ahead and subscribe to our channel. We're going to be posting a ton of content just like this, and you can get notified when we do. And if you have any comments or anything, make sure to drop them below. And let's go ahead and let's go right into the video.
So I know that you've been very generous with your time. I had one last, so we talked about a lot of clouds.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to give you one semi-dirt / cloud question about your days of Precision Nutrition. What do you think has been what was the single greatest or top 3 most strategic decisions or most important strategic decisions you made at PN, without which PN would not have become what it did? Like, what were important for, I'll say it differently just to get at the idea. Was there a frame shift or 2 important frame shifts that had to occur that had they not occurred, PN would not have become what it did?
Yep. Yeah, I can think of them right off the top of my head. So one of them was, in the early days, PN was a coaching company for consumers, right? That's what PN was. We had coaching programs and we had big prizes. I don't know if you remember this, but I mean, we were probably the first organization in the world to do online group, nutrition, exercise, lifestyle coaching.
Scrawny to brawny.
Yeah,
to brawny.
That's it. And nowadays, it's there's so many, but that's how we made our money. We had these huge contests. The risk of getting nostalgic here, but we used to send our coaches around the world to show up on our body transformation winners' doorsteps with those gigantic, oversized $25,000, $50,000 checks. We've surprised teachers at school. Their classroom presented them the check, all kinds of fun things. But I remember just, 1, my passion was professionals. 2, I just kept getting this feeling that more people cared about what we did through the process of trying to figure out how we're coaching and getting these results than cared about wanting to be a client and getting the results. You know what I mean? It was just like, man, professionals just want us to teach them what we're doing over here, and that was always PN's sort of differentiator. We're like the only nutrition certification company that was actually coaching clients, like we had a whole practice of doing that. So we could not teach you what the research says alone, but what actually works when you try this with hundreds of thousands of people who are paying you $100 a month. And so that was shift number 1. Like, I want to do an education program for professionals to teach them how we do this. So that was shift number 1. And it was it's really memorable for me because there's a story attached to it, which was when I proposed it, no one at the company thought it was going to do anything. Right. So this was my, I told you so moment. So I'm still sticking it to them 20 years later, I'm going, remember that time I said we should do certification for professionals and it ended up making 90% of our revenue. And you all thought it was dumb. And like, literally no one helped me. They were like, you get no resources, just go over there and do it quietly and leave us alone. So it was this idea, like, it seems intuitive now. Well, of course you did that, but it wasn't intuitive at all at the time. Like, we were on track to try and be like the online Weight Watchers, or nowadays Noom is really well known. We were doing it way before, but to be the Noom, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so the decision was, hey, there's this group of professionals, who are dying for this kind of thing. And it could be really profitable. And they know me and trust me in this industry. You know what I mean? So that was part A. And then part B has to do with the cert. It was the realization that people were not signing up for the cert for education, right? That's what everyone thinks continuing education is, right? What are seminars? Well, we go to this event so we can learn.
Yeah.
No, That's not what seminars are. Anyone who thinks that is only looking at the surface of this. People go to seminars. The learning is the face saving for getting together with your people.
Yeah.
Right. So you live in your hometown. There's not many people into health and fitness, but there's an event in San Diego.
Yeah.
And it's paradise. You know,
All
it's
fit
Mecca,
pros.
right?
Yeah,
It's,
yeah,
it's
all
where
fit
all
pros.
the people like me get together,
Yeah.
and we'll talk about the things that's why they go. But you can't tell your spouse or your business partner you're going to take this expense so you could go hang around people who you think might be like you. So there's education as face saving. With the certification, we realized that there were other factors way more important than education. People were not signing up for the certification to learn about nutrition, right? There was a whole sort of build up to that, you know, and just to scratch the surface of it, it was, I work in a field where I have education insecurity, right? Like I don't have a degree in this or master's, PhD, not even an undergrad. So I'm insecure about my knowledge. You are shoring that up for me. I have, so that's like, we call that credential insecurity, right? Second is employment insecurity. You know, I don't know where I'm going to get a job or how, or personal training is a transient thing, whatever. So the idea of having a stable list of recognized certifications helps shore that up. And so much spins from that, right? Like the number one thing people post when they do the certification is they go on Instagram or Facebook and they write hashtag never stop learning, right? What they're doing is they're demonstrating, like there is no way to differentiate yourself from any other coach in the industry, right? Clients don't know the difference in degrees and stuff like that. So, but you need to feel that you're better. If you read stuff online and you invest time in this, you need to feel like you're better than the chumps who suck at this. You know what I mean?
The other people
that
you go to those events to go see that you also
that's right.
don't like.
That's right. So this notion, you need to give people something to make them feel like they're above the fray, you know? Mm-hmm. So that was the second thing when we changed our marketing to satisfy this particular thing, helping you stand apart, helping you demonstrate your knowledge, right? It's not enough. Like you can't tell a client, I read 50 articles and that guy read none, right? But I got this certification and those people don't have it. And it's the most respected and recognized and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
That shift right there. And I write about this in the book. That came from a particular way of learning about customer insights called jobs to be done. And it originated in Harvard Business School with a guy named Clay Christensen. And the idea is whenever anyone hires a product or a service, and we're not talking about hiring a service or hiring a product, they have a job that they want done. And it's usually not the job you think it is. Again, if you're doing continuing education and you think they're hiring you to learn stuff, to expand their brain, wrong job, right? Yeah. You have to find out the job, because when you find out the job, then you can create more products and services that satisfy that. Your marketing becomes so much more effective. And so, again, I write about in the book all the questions and all the tools
the girl who lost 50 pounds. The job to be done wasn't weight loss.
That's
the job to be done was she wanted a therapist, not a therapist. But
for those listening, we had this was kicked it off for me. We had a client. She went through our coaching program. She lost 50 pounds in the year. I saw her posting on a forum saying she wouldn't recommend it to anyone else. And I thought, what's going on here? Right? Like, I looked her up, lost 50 pounds, talked to her coach. Yeah, she did okay. Decided to interview her, and her answer was, well, I felt like, I got a good physical result and I felt like my coach was really nice, but because it was a group program, I didn't feel like if I had really important questions, I never did, but if I did, I might not have gotten the time that I wanted and needed. So in essence, she was looking for a deep personal connection and the feeling that she was the most important person in that relationship. That's what she hired coaching for.
To feel like she was the most important person. Yeah, she might not get that anywhere. Not her husband, not from her job. But that could be the job that we could do for her, is make her feel the most important person.
So we changed our coaching to do that. It wasn't, okay, now it's one-on-one coaching because that wasn't a viable business model, but how can we engineer the feeling of personal? That became our mission.
Yeah.
How can our coaches deliver the feeling of personal, not personal?
Right.
Because I could spend 50 hours with you and you still not feel like we have a personal relationship.
Because
right?
of our perception, because my perception might not, even though you could make a strong argument, I might still not perceive that as personal.
Yeah. I mean, I talked with a researcher who wrote the book Tiny Habits, this really well-known Stanford behavior change expert. And he wrote about this, or we talked about this in our podcast, this idea that the number one predictor of success with their habits change coaching clients was this idea that their coach, it was the coach relationship, that their coach was caring, empathic, and kind. That was the number one predictor. So it was just like, it wasn't like, did they change their lives or anything like that? This feeling of a personal relationship. And anyone who looks at the therapy literature, it's the same. The number one predictor isn't the modality. It's not whether you use cognitive behavioral therapy or motivational interviewing or anything else. It's the relationship with the counselor. That is the number one predictor of success in therapy. So it really changes everything that you think about when you think about.
I mean, that I didn't know that. I didn't know it was the most important. I thought it was a very important component of it, but like I would have thought, CBT, from everything I know, is one of the better ways of doing things. And
now we see it across 3 domains, right? We're seeing it in therapy, we're seeing it in generic habit change, and we're seeing it in health and fitness coaching through customer knowledge, surveys, and research and all that. So you're like, okay, this is the thing to pay attention to, right? It's not just a random, we saw it over there, but what's it mean? It's like anywhere you look, people who are hiring coaches are looking for a personal relationship with someone who they feel can mentor them into the next phase of their lives. So again, does that mean you as the coach have to become their best buddy, BFF for life? No. But you have to think about engineering experiences, right? Like I remember, when I worked at PN, I was busy. I spent a lot of time at work for a number of years, and we had young children at the time. I remember thinking very consciously about this. Like, I won't be able to spend as much time with them now than I might want to. So how do I make each second feel like an hour? You know what I mean? Yeah. How do I engineer it so that we have high quality experiences together? So we just started calling it like QT, quality time, right? But our kids know what that means now, and they'll come to me some days and ask specifically for QT. Dad, can I just get a few minutes of QT? Which is different than let's go hang out and go biking or go for a run on the beach or something. This is, I want to specifically feel like the most important person in your world. I want physical touch. I want meaningful conversation. I want you to listen to my needs or thoughts or feelings right now. And that thing is this big investment in the emotional bank account, right? And so as coaches or leaders of coaches, so we have to be thinking about, if we know this, then how do you engineer the feeling of personal, right? In the context of coaching clients, where you don't have to spend an extra minute coaching, but each minute you do spend is engineered in a way to feel super personal, And I remember like little examples of this. Like, for example, let's say I was a client of yours and I mentioned liking a food or a book or something, right? And you just make a mental note of that. And when I leave, you write it down. And then during the next session, you bring something related to that. Like, that is such, oh my gosh, Alex was thinking of me when I wasn't even around. He must really care. What a special guy. What a great mentor for me. What a great coach, right? All you had to do was like pick up some at the store on the way in. Yeah. You know what I mean? And that's worth 20 hours of training together. So anyway, bit of a long-winded digression there, but that idea. So for me at PN, it was fundamentally changing the business model to serve a different demographic, that I had some instincts that really, really wanted what we had to offer in a different packaging. And then understanding that the job to be done was different than we thought. And then the next big pivot point was when we offered software. I mean, we had this group of clients we were coaching in the world. Then we had this education / credibility we were providing.
Mm-hmm.
We had no way to connect them. So then we created software. We said, oh, wait a second. It'd be the easiest thing to do because we already have the software. We're just not offering it to those people, the coaches. So then we offered the tools, the exact tools that we use to coach our own clients.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and our coaches were working with 250 to 300 clients each at a time. So it was really efficient tooling. And again, we built it in specific ways, personal. So for example, every time if you were a client of mine, you would send me a message. We had a tool that put up all the relevant information about you on the right side of the screen.
Yeah.
Your age, your favorite foods, your kids' names.
You're going to forget if you have 300 clients. I mean,
That's
like,
right.
Be real, right? I mean,
so instead of just saying, oh, you had a struggle with eating your protein at lunch today, blah, 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 answer, right?
Yeah.
I could say, hey, Alex, how's your daughter doing? I knew she had a big thing coming up this week. Kablam, feeling of personal. And I could do that 300 times, you know?
It's like the same amount of time. And that's the beauty is that the level of time commitment from the coach is identical.
That's right.
Just the impact of the time is so much higher.
Yeah, that's it. And so then we started offering that to coaches in our community. And then that was what gave us the big valuation as well at the sale of the company, because companies who have software as a service at that time were valued much higher than companies who provided straight services, because there's a recurring revenue model and all the other stuff.
Got it. So the three big pivots. One is you went from B2C to B2B.
Yep.
Second pivot was understanding the job that was to be done, and understanding that all of the results, or the vast majority of the results, come from the interpersonal connection, the personalization that someone feels with their coach, not necessarily even the modality that we're using.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third pivot was going into software and then opening that, what you were using internally, externally, and then letting that probably catapult the valuation of the company.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the reach.
Did you hire, this is me just tactically, did you hire an expert? Like, how did you find that CTO, the coder? Because you or Phil don't have that background, correct?
So Phil kind of does as a systems design engineer. He was, his early work was like with IBM, designing web interfaces and things like that. So he knew the community. Also, this is just a funny side note, but we had this guy named Ted, and Ted didn't work for the company. But if you needed something, Ted would find it for you. If Ted was a more nefarious kind of guy, he would be like a guy that someone in the mob would hire to fix things.
Job to be done.
But he was fully above the board. Like, he worked with CEOs on the side to find you whatever. So when we wanted a CTO, we called Ted. And Ted had all these ways of knowing people. I have just a funny story. Like, when I was born in the US and was a US citizen, but I came to Canada for my last degree and I lived here for a long time and I wanted to become a citizen. And I wrote my citizenship exam and it was taking way too long to find out. And I was like, oh man, could I have honestly failed this exam? You know what I mean? Like, I was like worried I was going to get the test wrong, you know? Yeah. And so I called Ted. I'm like, hey, I'm supposed to hear in like 9 months. It's been 19 months. How would you go about figuring this out for me? And he's like, and leave it with me. A week later, had my citizenship thing, you know? And what Ted did was he found a lawyer through a connection in the area that the citizenship judge worked. So he knew my application was probably just on the desk of a citizenship judge. So he found a lawyer who worked directly with the judge, and that lawyer made a call to the judge, and the judge sent me my thing. That's how Ted works. So that's, again, if you know a Ted, you don't need to be in the mix.
5 people.
That he's
Ted's
one of my 5. Yeah, that's right. So honestly, the weirdest things, I'll be like, hey, our daughter's having a medical thing. We need to find someone who can help with blank. And he'll be like, all right, leave it with me. Hey, we're looking for a vacation property, vacation cottage in this area, and we don't know anyone. Okay, I'll find you the person. You know, so anyway, that's how we did a lot of our important hiring. You know?
No way. So did he find you the CTO that you then ended up hiring?
Yes. Yeah, he did. Yep. And then once we were plugged into that community, this guy knew everyone.
Got it.
So then we were good on that. And so, yeah, the advice is find a TED. And here's a little insight into his process, by the way. We did a contest, right? And now I know how Ted meets all his people. We did a contest to win a mentorship dinner with me, right? And so we had like 1,000 applications. So here's what Ted does. He calls me, says, JB, I want to do a mentorship dinner with you. Here's how we'll set it up. People are going to apply. They send all the applications to me. I'll vet them all. I'll choose the top 5. I'll tell you who I recommend as the winner. I'll pay for everything. I'll fly them up to Toronto. I'll pay for dinner. I'll pay for their hotel. All you got to do is show up, and promote it to your community, right? And then after he does that one contest, which is like no work for me, he has a network of 1,000 really talented health and fitness people. And he has like 5 who are like absolute rock stars.
Right.
You know? So now if he needs something in the health and fitness space, he has the network. I'm like, this guy's good at what he does.
Yeah. He's like Dave.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
Dave
it.
He's like, I like connecting people. How do I turn this into a profession?
That's right. Yeah, that's it. I mean, what he used to do before was he comes from a family that was involved in jazz. And I think his parents were involved. Is it Charlie Mingus? Is that the guy's name? Or like involved in the rights to his music collection. So he went to school for music and jazz. He's just a weird guy. That's the point. He's Dave. He's a weird guy with all these diverse interests and found a way to carve a niche.
You said something earlier about Alwyn Cosgrove and how he spent time with Parisi.
Yeah.
And the questions that he asked were around equipment.
Mm-hmm.
What questions are you asking now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for me, it's so the backstory is when people ask me, what do you want to tell your 20-year-old self or whatever? I'm like, oh man, that guy was an idiot. That's my first thought, you know?
I feel that way about my last year self.
Yes. And so it's hilarious. And most people feel this way, like, gosh, that guy needed a lot, you know? Yeah. Here's where that breaks down, though. They think somehow today they're at the apex, right?
Right.
So it just dawned on me that my 60-year-old self, I'm 47 now, so maybe my 67-year-old self will look back on my 47-year-old self and be like, God, that guy was so confident and wrong, you know? So I talk to a lot of people who are older than me and ask them sometimes that directly, you know what I mean? Hey, I'm 47 now. Like, I've accomplished some things. I just want to get a sense for what my blind spots are. Like, as my life evolves over the next 20 years, what are the kinds of things that I'll start to think more about that I wish I would have thought a little bit about when I was in my 40s? The things that maybe I'm certain about now that life will teach me a little bit more nuance and grayness to the realities of things. And as you know, like if I live to whatever 95, I'm pretty much halfway there. So as the sands of time start slipping away, the things that you want to think about in terms of as the end of your life comes closer, those are the kind of questions I ask. And sometimes they're that direct, and other times it's less direct. It's very much more specific things. Sometimes when you ask people grand philosophical questions, you get grand philosophical answers, but nothing tactically relevant. So sometimes it's tactical, sometimes it's more grand, but it's all around that idea. Like, what do I need to be careful of? What do I need to be less certain of? Yeah. Mm-hmm. What is important to you now that wasn't back then? Not just around business, but about your relationship with your family. We've got young kids. They're 11, 9, 7, and 5. I want to talk to parents who have, 21, 19, 17, and 15 and figure out what I need to be ready for and what skills I need to have at that time, and how I need to do family governance, that kind of stuff. Like what's kind of around the corner, I posted some pictures of my physique recently, and also some pictures of me.
You look good.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. Did I screenshot? I think
you did.
I wish you happy birthday. Okay, good. I was like, because half the time I leave it in there and then I forget to, press send.
Right.
Text. Oh yeah, send something witty. And that's really cool. That'll definitely get you status with John.
That's right. Yes, that's right. Well, it's one of those little things. It takes a second, but it's thoughtful. It's one of my life principles. When I think about someone, I try and just send them a message in that moment or shortly thereafter, because otherwise I thought about them, but they don't know I thought about them. You know what I mean? There's a asymmetry there that need not exist, right? I was thinking nice things about Alex today, but I didn't tell him. So he doesn't even know, right? So now I try and make everyone know when I'm thinking nice things about them. But anyway, I posted these pictures, and then I posted an old bodybuilding picture, and people keep asking me like, hey, are you going to compete again? And I'm like, nah. I mean, it's cool. I learned so much from bodybuilding, but I have already done that.
Right.
Like I want to forge into new lessons, and my other story for that is when Phil and I started PN, we sold DVDs, educational DVDs, right?
Yeah.
And the front closet of our foyer was filled, and every Wednesday we'd go to Canada Post with big boxes of DVDs and send them out, right?
Can't believe it.
Sign the papers. So nowadays that's my metaphor. Like if someone asking me to start over, I'm like, I don't want to mail DVDs from my front foyer again, So Amanda might have an idea, my wife, and I'll be like, oh, that feels too much like starting at the beginning. Like I've already done that in my life. I don't want to start at the beginning again. I don't have to. I'm fortunate enough not to have to,
Right.
So yeah, a lot of what I want to learn is forging into new domains, and it's whatever. It's not to denigrate anyone who keeps bodybuilding or shipping DVDs, but it's just not for me. I've already done it. I think I've extracted the lessons from that.
I think you probably have. Well, I want to be really mindful of your time, and you've been unbelievably generous with myself and the audience. And so, from the bottom of my heart, personally, thank you so much for taking the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
The Gym Lords podcast. I want to give you the floor because we spoke about this earlier. There was the caliper test, and there was the Changemaker book. So if you want, I can put the links to that stuff underneath the podcast. But is there any 2 cents you want to add some color to anyone who's listening?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, if some of the stuff we talked about today is interesting to any of the listeners, then I really sort of put this into a system, and it's thought out and less random and sidebar-y. In my Changemaker book, I published that after selling PN as sort of what you call it, like a legacy project. I wanted to capture everything I learned in growing the business, tell stories about it, tell lessons about it, and then give some hopefully insightful advice. Book's on sale on Amazon right now for 50% off. So if folks want to check it out, I mean, it's not a bad $12 or $15 spent. I think you'll learn a lot. And it's also a workbook. So all the questions we talked about, the introspective questions, the jobs to be done stuff about clients, I give it all away for free. There's over 150 pages of free worksheets and downloads and scripts and things like that you can get for free. Just once you get the book, the link's in there and you can download all that stuff. People told me that's meant a lot to them in their career. So that's the first thing I love people to check out. But it still costs a little bit of money. And if you're not ready to make that step, that's fine. The next thing, though, is completely free. I'm working on a project to sort of identify the unique abilities of people who work in health and fitness. No one's ever done anything like this before, but we're collecting information on about 15,000 people who work in health and fitness. We're giving them the caliper test, which is normally a $700 personality and work style assessment, totally free. And then we're looking for relationships between your education level and what you do in the industry right now and how satisfied you are in what you do with these personality dimensions. And when you do it, again, totally free. We even have a contest. If you do it, you can win some prizes. And we also send you all your results. So we can put it in the links for the show, and it'll give you a chance to go through a pretty cool assessment. It's different than most of the ones you've taken. Some of the questions are things you've seen before, but others is like logic puzzles and cool stuff like that. So you can actually test your logical thinking. And yeah, you'll get a cool report. And also you'll be contributing to this big project, which again, back to the matrix thing. I don't have a business model for this. If I can get away with giving it away for free, I fully will eventually. But the idea is when employers are looking to hire team members for specific roles, they will know in advance through the caliper what traits are most associated with success in those roles. And when people in the industry are looking for their next move or maybe their first move into the industry, they can find the highest probability plays. So in other words, people like me tend to be most successful as a online coach or as a Instagram influencer or as a podcast host or whatever. So we're identifying all those traits. So I'd love for you all, if you have any interest in this, to come check it out, because it's a really fun project that I think will be a game changer for a lot of the industry.
For context, everyone who's listening right now, I'd say, hey, go click the link, do the thing. And it's normally $700. And so he's giving this away for free. He's fronting the money for you, for lack of a better term, for you to do this. I think it would be silly not to. I mean, I think a lot of people want to have more more knowledge. More self-knowledge never hurt anyone.
Yeah.
And I think this may be one of those rare instances where it's not just like, what type of bread are you? BuzzFeed quiz, 13
Disney
questions.
Character.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and,
no, this assessment has already been done on 4 million people. It's the most robust and evidence-based assessment that exists in the world right now around this. What we're doing special is we're doing it just for the health and fitness industry, which they don't have any data on. They have data on manufacturing industries and tech industry. So for me, where I'm investing is in the health and fitness industry, which is a niche that no one really invests in the broader community. So I have the money, I have the passion for the field. So that's where I'm putting it.
You could be best in the world at this. Well, thank you so much for taking the time today. And I know that if anyone got a third as much of the value that I did, then everyone will be very well served. So thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you, Alex. I appreciate you having me, and everyone who's hung in for this long interview. Thank you too.